Hello and welcome to Andy's World. Today you join me in the Nottinghamshire village of Edwinstowe, gateway to Sherwood Forest and everybody's favourite outlaw, Robin Hood. Today we're going to have an explore of the forest, some of the legend and see some of the lesser known sites around the woods.
Edwinstowe has an attractive high street but is surprisingly well equipped, from general stores to an excellent sweet shop. Also has some quirky shops. This one sells wands. There are plenty of public houses and cafes and free parking on both West Lane and East Lane. Continuing north over the crossroads, we enter the appropriately named Church Street, which leads to the churchyard of the Church of St Mary. The current church was built in 1175 and is believed to be the place where Robin Hood and Maid Marian got married. However, there is a site of an older chapel, which we will look at later.
Quite surprised to find this little chap in this churchyard. I'm a local lad and I recognise this from my childhood. It was part of an exhibit in the old visitor centre called the Tales of Robin Hood. There's a few of them around here and I'll try to dig some old pictures out, but it's really well done up, or it's a copy, but it's in really good nick.
Continuing up Church Street, we arrive at the Sherwood Forest Fairground. Although geared up for younger children, there's plenty of things to do for your little outlaws to enjoy. The staff are really friendly and it's a very enjoyable place to visit. Heading west from the fairground, within sight is the Sherwood Forest Visitor Centre. The centre has quite a well-stocked gift shop with all things Robin Hood. Information boards are on the walls as well about the forest. The cafe is quite spacious and I must admit the coffee's quite good. Now it's time to get amongst the trees and get into the forest. We take the path to the major oak from the visitor centre.
This is the major oak, and legend says this is where Robin and his men hid from the Sheriff of Nottingham. It weighs 23 tonnes, has a girth of 33 feet and a canopy of 98 feet, and is approximately 800 to 1,000 years old.
Conservation is key at the major oak. That fence isn't there for nothing, it's to protect the soil and the roots from erosion. Its boughs and branches are strengthened by props to protect from high winds. Leaving the major oak, we get off the tourist path and enter the ancient royal hunting forest of Birchlands. The forest that most people associate with Sherwood Forest is actually named Birchlands or Bilhow from its older name of Birchwood or Birchwood, after the many birch trees here. It is a remnant of an older, much larger royal hunting forest, which derived its name from its status as the Shire or Sherwood of Nottinghamshire.
Well, we've come up from Birklands and we've reached this junction along cycle route number 6. Now, cycle route number 6 is actually an ancient drive called Broad Lane or Broad Drive, later known as the Duke's Drive. And this tree here claims to be the centre tree of Sherwood Forest. Now, it's marked on the OS maps as the centre tree, but there is another tree that also claims to be the centre of Sherwood Forest, and that's in Mansfield Marketplace.
Situated on Westgate in Mansfield, the original ancient tree stood here until 1940.
Now, I've got my own theory why this is called the centre tree, and we'll come to that a little bit later. So we've carried straight on along the forestry tracks from the centre tree, and the demeanour of the forest changes completely. It's so quiet, so hardly anybody about, and the bird song's amazing. When you see the first path on the left, that's the way to go. When you reach the fork in the path, keep to the right.
After turning left at the last junction, the path gets thinner and is most frequented by dog walkers and cyclists. Widely forgotten about, this area of the forest has, in my opinion, the most historical site in the forest, the site of St Edwin's Chapel.
The inscription on the stone says, erected by William Arthur, 6th Duke of Portland, 1912. Marks the site of a royal chapel, chantry and hermitage dedicated to St Edwin, King of Northumberland, of which the few stones here collected are evidence. In 1201, King John paid the Hermit of Clipston, who sang at St Edwin's Chapel in the Hay of Birchwood, the annual strip-end of 40s, to celebrate service for his soul and those of his ancestors. Similar payments by succeeding kings are recorded to 1548. Survey maps show the chapel here in 1610 and 1660. Back in the 7th century, in Edwin's time, England was divided into various kingdoms, two of the biggest being Mercia and Edwin's Northumberland. And there was many skirmishes and lands changed hands, and Edwin's kingdom eventually stretched up to the Scottish borders, and Edinburgh gets its name from Edwin as Edwin's Burh or Edwin's Fortress. Now, in 627, he converted to Christianity and spread his faith throughout his kingdom, whereupon in 633, at the Battle of Hatfield Chase, he was mortally wounded, and the legend says that his body was brought back to Sherwood Forest and hidden by the Hermit of Clipston, who's rumoured to be one of Robin's men, Friar Tuck. Now, the secret place his body was brought to in Sherwood Forest later became known as Edwinstowe, or Edwin's resting place, and for a while his body was kept there secretly away from his enemies until eventually his head was buried in York and his body in Whitby.
There is a connection to the Whitby link of Edwin. He founded a small chapel there in 630. Lady Hilda, Abbess of Hartlepool Abbey and grandniece of Edwin, founded Whitby Abbey in 657. After a short time we come to the A6075. This can be a difficult road to cross. Prizes for your best monkey run. After a short walk down the pleasant green lane, we arrive at Archway House. Begun in 1842, Archway House was originally intended to be one of the first of 20 identical structures, or lodges, to be constructed on the 4th Duke of Portland's estate at Welbeck Abbey in Nottinghamshire. In design, Archway House is based on the medieval gatehouse at Worksop Priory. The niches contain statues connected with forest folklore of Sherwood, Robin Hood, Little John and Maid Marian on the south side, and King Richard, Friar Tuck and Allen a Dale on the north side. 4 hares, emblems of the Portland family, decorate the north and south parapets. With the death of the Duke in 1854, only this single example was ever built, and none of the work on the further 19 lodges was undertaken. This brings us to my theory about the centre tree. If we look at the OS map and identify the centre tree here and Archway House here, we can in fact draw a line straight along the Duke's Drive, and it goes directly through the centre of Archway House. The tree is also on a slightly higher elevation than Archway House. It is said that Archway House was built on Duke's Drive, and from the air the route can still be clearly seen from the forest, making a beeline for the house itself. Years ago I walked this route, and there used to be a tourist board at the house which is now long gone. It clearly shows a picture of the tree in the centre of the arch. With the tree being of high elevation, it could have been clearly seen from the centre of the arch. Could it be that this is what is meant by the centre tree? The tree in the centre of the arch.
So let's crack on for now over the bridge to see King John's Palace.
Carrying on to King John's Palace would make the walk 7.4 miles long. However, you can cut the walk short here by turning left at the bridge and heading back to Edwinstowe, making a total of 5.7 miles. This part of the walk crosses over a lot of railway relics from the old colliery lines of Nottinghamshire. Long disused, although this one still is open as part of the High Marnham test track. The Dog and Duck public house announces our arrival at the village of King's Clipston. Following the main road through the village and continuing up the hill, we turn left through the farm gate and enter the grounds of King John's Palace.
This is the remains of King John's Palace. The current ruins date back from about 1180, but it was much part of a much earlier multi-phased, multi-period construction. Consisted of stables, chapels, buildings all over these meadows here. But the reference to King John and how it got its name is quite vague, as he only ever spent 9 days here. Now fast forward 664 years and William Bentinck, the 4th Duke of Portland, now owns his lands, and he instigated a draining of the flood meadows around here, completed in 1844. White's Trade Directory describes the ruins as the following, and I quote, "The only part of the palace now remaining stands in a large field close to the village, and it seems to have been the hall. The foundations have been formerly extensive, with several large vaults, but in 1816 a great part of these were dug up to be employed in draining, which the Duke of Portland then commenced upon his estate there, and it appears much spoliation was made on the venerable walls, though it is said that His Grace had given strict orders to the contrary. So the Duke of Portland basically used the stones from here to line the channels in his flood meadows just down in the valley there. But he wanted them to leave something behind, leave some of the ruins. Perhaps he wanted a folly, but he made sure it weren't all taken away.
And so we retrace our steps back via the Dog and Duck back to the bridge over the River Morn.
Edwinstowe.
Now when you get to this point you'll be quite tempted to carry straight on over this bridge there. That's the way towards Rufford, and it's the wrong way. You simply want to stay on the path that curves round more or less straight on.
And soon we re-enter civilization. 4th Avenue in Edwinstowe is a pleasant suburban street. Crossing the road over the dogleg at the shops, the route takes you onto West Lane and back to the town centre.
So that's it from Edwinstowe in Sherwood Forest. I hope you've enjoyed the video. It's the first vlog I've ever made, but I'm sure things will get better. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.